Hello all. In our today's session, we will be dealing with the second part of one of the most essential factors of a valid contract, that is acceptance to an offer. Section 2, Clause B of the Indian Contract Act defines acceptance as when the person to whom the proposal is made signifies his assent thereto. It is an acceptance of the offer or the proposal. Now, as we said last time as well, an offer and acceptance are the two sides of the same coin. Unless and until a proposal is accepted, there cannot be a binding contract or an agreement between two parties. Now, the person who is accepting the offer is called as an acceptor, and it is only then that the bindingness between the parties arises. So, acceptance of the offer is necessary to create a legal relationship between the parties. We will go through certain essentials of a valid acceptance to understand as to when all can we say that an acceptance which is given to an offer is valid, thereby creating it an agreement between the parties. The first point is that only the offeree can accept the offer. It is only the person to whom the offer is made can accept it. For example, if I am making an offer to Mr. A, Mr. B cannot come up and say that I am accepting your offer. In case an offer is a specific offer, that means if I am making it only to one person or to a group of person, to specific people, it is only they that can accept that offer. In case of general offers, whosoever reads that offer, views that offer, or listens to that offer, or is present or gets communicated with respect to that offer can go ahead and accept it. So, a stranger or a third person cannot accept the offer. If the offer is made to a particular person, he alone can go ahead and accept it. Second important point of valid acceptance is that it must be absolute and unconditional. Now, when we were discussing the essentials of valid offer, we said that an offer may be conditional. That means when an offerer is putting forth his offer, he may lay down certain conditions as prerequisite to an acceptance of that offer. But when we talk about acceptance, an acceptance must be unconditional, meaning that whatever are the terms and conditions mentioned in that offer, the person needs to accept that offer as it is, without any modification to it, without any changes to it. It is only the absolute and unqualified acceptance which will be considered to be valid and which is binding upon the proposer. When all the terms and conditions of the offer are accepted, it is an absolute acceptance. Now, when offer must be accepted in full and no additional condition should be added while accepting the proposal. If a conditional or qualified acceptance is given, such acceptance will not be considered to be valid and thereby there cannot be any agreement between the parties. Now, putting any conditions while accepting the proposal, it will not amount to acceptance but it will amount to counter offer. That means, to give you a small example, if I have offered my friend that I am ready to sell my laptop for 5,000 rupees. The friend calls me up and says that I am ready to purchase your laptop but not for 5,000 rupees, I am ready to purchase it for 4,000 rupees. That cannot be considered to be an acceptance to my offer of selling the laptop for 5,000 rupees. In this case, what has happened is that my friend has put an condition to the acceptance which the friend is trying to give, and thereby it is not a valid acceptance. In such case, when my friend says that I am ready to purchase the laptop for 4,000 rupees, it will not amount to acceptance but it will amount to counter offer. This is the difference between an acceptance and a counter offer. So whenever an offer is made, if there has to be an acceptance, it has to be as per the terms and conditions given in the offer. When a person puts forth his own terms and conditions or any changes are done to the offer, it cannot be considered as an acceptance but it will be termed as a counter offer. Another important essential of valid acceptance is that it must be communicated to the offerer. Now, to elaborate this point, we again have a landmark judgment known as Powell versus Lee. Again, a UK court judgment, an old judgment. Now, in this case, it is a 1908 judgment, so quite old judgment, but the logic still is applicable even today. Now, in this judgment, what had happened was that Powell had applied to a school to be appointed as a headmaster. Now, the management of the school took his interview, had an interaction with Paul, and tried to understand whether he wants to get into the school or not. After which, the management of the school resolved to appoint Powell as the headmaster of that school. Now, one of the director of that management, in his individual capacity, informed Powell about the decision. So he was the friend of Powell, and that director told Powell that we as directors, we had a discussion and the management has decided to appoint you as the headmaster. But this particular information was not shared with Powell as a formal information. It was a very much informal discussion. But later on, the management of the school decided not to go ahead with Powell and cancelled the resolution of his appointment. Now, later on, Powell came to know about it and filed a case against the school, saying that Mr. Lee had informed me that the management has appointed him. That means the management has accepted his proposal of being appointed as the headmaster of that school. Now, the court in this case went ahead and said that as there was no any official or any formal communication from the management to Mr. Paul, that cannot be considered to be a valid acceptance of his offer, and thereby there cannot be a bindingness and cannot be an agreement or a contract. So, like we talked about the offer, that offer needs to be communicated. If you remember, we had discussed the landmark judgment of Lalman Shukla versus Gauri Dutt. Likewise, in case of acceptance as well, it must be communicated to the offerer, otherwise it cannot be considered to be a valid acceptance. The next important essential is that it must be given within a fixed period of time or a reasonable period of time. Now, whenever an offer is made, generally the offerer mentions a timeline saying that if you are ready to accept my offer, you must accept it within, let's say, 5 days from now or within 6 days from now. If the acceptance has to be given by the offeree, it must be given within the specified time period of 5 days or 7 days, whatever is mentioned in the offer. If the offerer says that if you want to accept my offer, you need to communicate your acceptance within 5 days from today. But if the offeree conveys his acceptance on 8th day, it will not be considered to be a valid acceptance because the time period has already lapsed. If the offerer does not mention any time period in his offer with respect to within how many days or within how much time period the acceptance should be given, then under any other law like we have it in India and elsewhere, there is a concept of reasonable period of time. Now, the word reasonable is a very subjective word which depends upon case to case, which depends on the nature of transaction or on the nature of business, and that has to be considered depending upon what was the intention of the parties at the time of making an offer. For example, let's say if I am running a bakery and I am trying to bake certain cakes or pastries. Now, such type of trade requires that you need to supply them the as early as possible the fresh material or the fresh products which are utilized for baking cakes and pastries. Now, if the shop, my bakery, is going to open at 6 a.m. in the morning, and I specifically tell that person who is going to provide me all the confectionery related products that I'm going to open up my bakery at 6 a.m. in the morning and I need the products as early as possible. But if the person, that is the supplier, provides me all the material which I require for baking at 4 o'clock in the evening, it cannot be considered to be a reasonable period of time. Likewise, for example, if the shopkeeper who is supplying the textbooks tries to supply the textbooks after the term of that academic year is over, it cannot be considered to be a reasonable period of time. So if acceptance has to be valid acceptance, it must be given either within a fixed period of time if mentioned in the offer, or within a reasonable period of time. Again, like an offer, an acceptance can also be express or implied. Express, like we said last time as well, if it is given by words spoken or written, it is an express acceptance. But if the offer is accepted by conduct, it is an implied acceptance. Now the acceptance in such cases will be gathered from the conduct of the offeree. To give you a small example, if I take a seat in the bus, it is implied acceptance that I am going to pay the bus ticket whichever is applicable. Again, like if a patient goes to the doctor for treatment, his conduct implies that he is accepted to pay the fees of the doctor for his treatment. So such acceptances are considered to be implied acceptance. Likewise, the acceptance must be given in the prescribed mode. Now this is an important factor for a simple reason. In an offer, the offerer can mention as to the mode of acceptance. For example, if the offerer says that if you are ready to accept my offer, you need to send me an email within a period of 5 days with respect to your acceptance. Now if I am the offeree, I am ready to accept his offer, but instead of sending an email, I'll write a letter to this person and say that I accept your offer. The offerer gets a right to reject my acceptance for a simple reason. He had specifically mentioned in his offer that the acceptance should be via email for various purposes. Maybe he wants to put it on record, he wants to get it as soon as possible as compared to letter which might take 7-8 days altogether. So whatever be the reason, if the offer specifically is having a clause with respect to the mode via which the acceptance should be given, then it should be given in that mode itself. Otherwise, it cannot be considered to be a valid acceptance. The next essential is that the acceptance has to be given, but if a person is silent with respect to his acceptance, it cannot be considered to be an implied acceptance. Meaning what? The offeree has to communicate his acceptance, but he cannot be obliged to communicate his non-acceptance. Whereby, therefore, if a person remains silent or does not communicate his non-acceptance, it cannot be treated as his acceptance. Acceptance cannot be implied from the silence of the party. Now if for example I am not ready to accept the offer which is made to me, but I don't convey my non acceptance to the offerer, the offerer cannot conclude on his own that just because you have not sent me any non acceptance related letter or acceptance related letter, I am assuming that you are accepting my offer. That is something which is not permissible. You cannot impose an obligation on the other party to accept the obligations under the contract, and thereby if there is no formal communication, be it implied or express communication, with respect to acceptance, it cannot amount to an acceptance, and silence by the offeree shall not be connoted as his acceptance. Likewise, the acceptor must be aware of the proposal at the time of the acceptance. Now, this is one point which we had already discussed when we were discussing Lalman Shukla versus Gauri Dutt case. If the acceptor is not aware of the proposal, he has no right to accept it. Acceptance is followed by an offer, and therefore, if a person does not know about the offer, he cannot go ahead and give his acceptance. Such acceptance will not be considered to be valid and binding on the offerer. Another important point is that the general offer can be accepted by any person. This is one point which we also discussed when we were discussing Carlyle versus Carbolic Smokeball Company Limited. So, when a person makes a general offer, that means an offer which is made to the world at large, any person who has notice of that offer can come forward and accept the offer. Where the offer is addressed to a group of persons, anyone from that group can accept it. But in case of specific offer, it has to be accepted only and only by the person to whom that offer has been specifically made. But in case of general offer, let's say an offer is given in the advertisement in the newspaper. If I have read that newspaper, I can go ahead and accept the offer. That is the meaning of acceptance in case of general offer. And the last point with respect to valid acceptance is that acceptance must show an intention to fulfill the terms of the offer. When you talk about acceptance, the acceptor must have an intention to comply with the terms of the offer. If such intention is not present, the acceptance is not valid and binding on the offerer. For example, let's say if A agrees to purchase B's house provided B gets it repaired and painted. Now, after this particular offer term, if B does not paint the house, his non-compliance fails to show his intention to accept A's offer. Meaning, if I am ready to accept an offer, I should be willing and have an intention to accept it. If I'm just putting forth certain terms or certain approvals just by the way, without any intention of binding myself into any legal protection or legal bindingness under the Indian Contract Act, it cannot be considered to be a valid acceptance. So when we talk about the offer and acceptance, these are the important terms and conditions after which the offer and acceptance, if they are termed out to be valid, there stands a valid agreement between the parties. So to sum up certain terms and conditions, these are the essentials of a valid offer. That means it should be capable of creating legal relation. The terms of the offer must be certain, definite and not vague. Then when in case of Carlyle versus Carbolic Smoke Ball Company Limited, it may be specific or it might be general offer. It can be express or it can be specific offer. Likewise, it must be communicated to the offeree, like we talked about in Lalman Shukla versus Gauri Dutt. It must be made to obtain the assent of the other party. Likewise, it may be conditional. Now, the offer is different than invitation to offer, like we discussed the Harvey versus Facey case. Like we said, the price tags which are put out on mannequins of a shop, or if the price tags are put out on the products which are displayed in the shop, that is not an offer, it is just an invitation to offer. When you reach out to the shopkeeper and you ask him to sell off the products, then you are making the offer to the shopkeeper, which may or may not be accepted by the shopkeeper. So there is a vast difference between offer and invitation to offer. Likewise, an offer should not contain a term the non-compliance of which would amount to acceptance. Similar point we just discussed in the terms of valid acceptance, wherein we said if a person has not communicated his non-acceptance, it should not be implied that he is silent. Silent means that he has accepted my offer. There cannot be any imposition of burden of obligations under the agreement. Likewise, an offerer may revoke a particular offer till the time it is not accepted by that particular offeree. So, when you talk about the offer, these are the valid conditions or the valid conditions for a valid offer, whereas we just discussed the essentials of valid acceptance. So it is only when an offer and an acceptance are valid that you can term the agreement to be a valid agreement. Now in our next session we will go through another important criteria to make a contract a valid contract, that relates to capacity of parties. Thank you so much.